Welcome back, McFly subscribers. Today we're continuing this series on cheater flies, and the next in this series is the egg fly. There are a bunch of different ways to tie eggs, and I will show you a handful of them today. Now I will discuss this fly in more detail further in the video, as I'm sure you all want to get started tying right away, but in case you haven't seen this channel before, this is McFly Angler.
Starts now.
Okay, let's start tying. Place a hook securely in your vise. For a hook, I'm using Risen's Barbless Emerger 2488 in size 10. This is a fairly long shank curved hook with a straight eye. What you're looking for is a hook shaped like this, but with the shank extending out a little past the hook point to give the egg some room. You can also tie these much smaller, but make sure you're using less egg material and cut it smaller as well. Also, while this says it's a fine wire, if you look at this, it's a fairly strong hook, which we will need. Okay, we also need some thread, and today I'm using Viva's 6/0 in red. This is a round thread that is fairly strong. Perfect for this fly, as we will be pulling quite hard when tying these. You can use other colors as well. Usually people use bright colors like these. We're going to start with the glow bug version. Start your thread just a touch back from the hook eye, and snip or snap off the waist. Then bring your thread down a little past the hook point mark, and then come back up to just shy of the initial tie-in spot. And keep tying back and forth to build a thick thread base. Then end with your thread in the middle of that base. Now we need glow bug yarn. Orvis, however, calls it egg yarn. It's the same thing. Pull out a piece about 12 inches long, and a piece this big should tie 5 or more of these flies. Let's fold this in half and cut the loop. By the way, you need some good scissors for this fly, as this yarn is tough on scissors. And these 4-inch standard scissors from Risen are great, and reasonably priced. Razor scissors are also a popular option, and you can adjust the tightness with them. Okay, let's stretch out the yarn and pinch it with about a 1/2 inch or so sticking out. If you have trouble tying this with a small tag end, you can pinch further down, leaving a longer tag like this. Just know that this will waste more material. Tie this in right on top of the hook with 2 very tight wraps. Then pull the yarn up and wrap tightly around the base of the yarn 3 times. Make an extra wrap in front of the yarn over the hook shank, and then whip finish your fly. We need to turn the fly upside down to cement it. For that, I really like Solarez Ultra Thin Resin. Paint a little on the underside of the hook, coating the thread wraps and whip finish. Then cure it with UV light, and this fly will not come loose now. Turn the fly right side up, and then stroke the yarn upwards, trying to gather it tightly straight above the fly. Now grab some scissors and make a straight cut across the yarn, about a hook gap width above the hook shank. Take the fly out of your vise and roll it around in your hand to round out the fiber. And there we go, the finished glow bug egg. The red thread bump here acts as a yolk, and the fly is basically just a round puffy yarn that resembles an egg. This is the cheapest and easiest version of any egg out there. Once you get the hang of tying these, you can bust through a couple dozen in an hour, and 1 bag of glow bug yarn can tie 50 or more of these flies. Glow bug yarn is also very inexpensive, making this fly one of the least expensive flies to tie. Now, if you wanted to tie these a little bit smaller, say size 16 or 18, you will want to use a single strand of the yarn rather than doubling it up. Okay, let's go ahead and tie up the version that uses McFly foam yarn. And no, unfortunately it's not associated with this channel, but start your thread on the hook with a small gap back from the hook eye. Then snip or snap off the waist and bring your thread down to about the hook point mark. Then back up about halfway. And we do not need to build as thick of a thread base here. Now for the McFly foam. This stuff comes in many different colors, but you will want to use 2 of them, one lighter and one darker. Today I'm using McCheese and orange. Pull off a fairly thick piece of this stuff, and this is rather difficult to work with. It sticks to any rough parts of your fingers and is hard to separate. But once you get it separated, then fold this long stretch in half. I actually pulled off too much, so I'm removing a bit. Okay, this is the right amount for this size fly. Now we need a small strip of the darker color. Lay that strip on top of the other strip, and then cut it to the same length. We will want to make sure that the fiber is all the same length, and there is always some strands longer than others, so let's square off this before tying in. Then let's stretch and pinch again to compress the foam, and tie this in with 2 tight wraps at the compressed area. Now swing the foam around so it's perpendicular to the hook shank, and make 4 tight wraps going the other way. Basically, we're making an X wrap on top. Here, let me turn this so you can see. We're wrapping over it like this, trying to ensure not to trap any fiber, and wrap right in the middle of that pinched section. Now let's finish up with 2 more wraps going the other direction, for a total of 4 wraps in both directions. Now pull back the fiber and wrap back up on top of the foam, then whip finish the fly and trim off the waste. Add a dot of that ultra thin resin and cure it with your UV light to make this super durable. Then we're going to do the same thing as the glow bug version. Pull up all the fiber and try to compress it the best that you can. Then make an even, straight cut along the top with about a hook gap width length. Most of the time this comes out with all the fiber even, but every once in a while you have to trim again if there is any part sticking out further than others. Roll it around in your hand, and now you have the perfect little ball. The darker color acts as a yolk, and there's really no other material or way to tie these that makes such a perfect little ball. Okay, well, I mean, not all will come out perfect. This one sure isn't. However, it's good enough to fool trout, and I'm happy with it. You can change up the colors to make the yolk darker or a different color egg, and you can even tie these smaller with less of that material and a smaller hook. Okay, let me show you some variations of this version. You can add anything off the back of this fly. Some popular options are 3 strands of Krystal flash, or even ultra chenille. Let's first use the Krystal flash. Start with the fly exactly the same way, then tie in the Krystal flash off the back. Cut it to your desired length, but don't worry, we can cut this more to length later. So leave it maybe a little longer, we're just trying to get it out of the way. Okay, now continue tying this fly exactly the same way. Just note that the Krystal flash can get stuck in the fiber, so don't accidentally tie in the flash when trying to tie in the foam yarn. Also, when cutting the yarn, make sure the flash isn't in the way as well. Now here I cut this one a little shorter than I should have, but it still came out as a ball. However, even after rolling it out, there is a little gap at the bottom exposing the thread. That's okay, it will still catch fish. Okay, cut your flash to the desired length, and this fly is now finished. This is a popular variation, as the flash can be some added attraction to the fish. Okay, let's add some chenille. Everything is done exactly the same as the flash version. I'm going to fast forward through most of this since it's basically the same fly, except we need to round out the end of the chenille with a lighter. You can get creative, adding whatever you want to this fly. In fact, many will tie an egg-sucking leech, adding a strip of rabbit fur off the back. But okay, there we go, another variation of this fly. And I'm going to do one more final variation here. This one is called the Nuke egg. For this, we only need one color of the foam yarn. We will tie it in the same way as before. But we will cut the yarn and make a ball before we whip finish, as we need to make one more step. Here I have a couple types of long fiber dubbing. I really like the Chenille laser dubbing for this fly, as it's fairly translucent. They also make something called egg veil, which I think is made just for this application, but I don't have any, and Chenille is about as close as you can get. Let's pull out about this much, and separate it in your fingers a few times to align the fibers. Actually, I had a little too much, so I'm removing some. But okay, there we go. This is what you want to end up with. A wide, flat, and aligned bunch of fiber like this. Wrap this around the egg. And make 2 loose wraps before cinching down. Make a couple more loose wraps to really lock it in tight. Then pull the forward-facing fibers rearward and try to evenly distribute them around the egg. Tie back on top of them and whip finish right behind the hook eye. Cement the whip finish, and then pull the fibers back and cut them at an angle so they're about as long as the hook bend. You can cut them a bit longer if you want, but don't leave these too long. Once wet, this fiber is see-through and the egg color shows through. The fiber around the egg makes it look like the egg got popped, and just the yolk remains with the soft eggshell wrapped around it. Something about this version really seems to entice the fish. The fish love this fly, and of course all these egg variations, but this Nuke egg really seems to get the most strikes. However, it is a bit more tricky to tie with that veil, and will take a few tries for you to get the hang of doing it. But once you do though, it's really not too difficult. However, all of these eggs will catch fish, and there are times when fish are eating salmon eggs that it really does not matter what version you throw out. These fish will eat anything that looks round and roughly an egg color. In those cases, I tend to tie the first version because it's the easiest. But other times when the fish are more picky, I will fish one of these others. Now these egg flies are in my series for cheater flies, because many fishermen find them to not be real flies, or flies that they consider cheating. I guess this is because they're so easy to tie, and so easy to catch fish with. Now I totally understand when fishermen want to limit themselves to a particular style of fishing. For instance, I will occasionally go out fishing with the intention of only fishing with dry flies. But this is a per trip kind of thing, not a general rule. I've been out fishing where more traditional flies aren't catching, and in those instances, I don't feel there's any fly I wouldn't rule out completely. If they catch fish, which eggs do catch fish, I will use them, and you should too. I respect those who limit themselves in fishing certain types of flies, all the power to them. But as long as someone is following the laws and local regulations, and they're having fun, I don't think they should be judged. So go out and give these a try, and don't let anyone judge you on how you want to fish. Here I showed you 5 different ways to tie egg flies. If you have a favorite way or variation that I didn't show here today, let me know in the comment section. I am halfway through this month's series on cheater flies, and I started off this series with the salmon worm, one of the most infamous flies out there. And of course this week I tied up the egg for you all. Make sure you come back next week, as I'm going to tie up a fly that has gotten a really bad rap, the mop fly. Now I don't understand this though, as these can be tied in so many different ways. Basically, the mop pieces are perfect little bodies that are pre-made. You can fancy them up any way you want, or make them as simple as you want. So make sure you're subscribed and click that bell notification so you don't miss any future videos like this mop fly. By the way, I sell these fly boxes on Amazon with free shipping. They're thin enough to fit in most shirt pockets, or fit multiple in a chest pack, allowing you to organize your boxes by fly type. The silicone back is self-healing, meaning you can poke it with your hooks, and it won't get all messed up like those foam back boxes. And the pre-made slits hold your flies very tight. These boxes should last you a long time. I will link below to my Amazon storefront if you're interested in picking up these boxes. Also, don't forget to check out my sponsor, Risen Fly. They made the hooks I use today, but they also make some of the best fly rods and reels for the money I have ever used. Best off, they're offering you all a discount. So if you're in the market for a new rod or a bunch of hooks or beads, go to www.risenfly.com and type in McFly at checkout, and they'll give you 15% off of your first order with them. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video, please do me a favor and click the like button. Also, if you could share my videos with all your fishing friends, I would really appreciate it. I will see you on the next video. Now you go catch some fish.